back to Grok Talk, brought to you by GraniteGrok.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. We are there. Just look for Granite Grok. We are also on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Ustream, YouTube, and, of course, at GraniteGrok.com. Testosterone is on the list.
Testosterone?
Testosterone. Kimberly.
I don't take that.
I don't either.
Yeah, testosterone is on the list of what the reporting.
Eventually, everything will be on the list, by the way. So.
Why?
Well, exactly.
Why?
Exactly.
And of
Why is
course,
testosterone on the list?
Yeah, Kimberly, why is testosterone on the list?
Because they don't want bearded ladies.
It makes you
that's why.
angry.
Because it's considered a certain. What they did is they took certain controlled substances. You know how they're labeled like 2 through 4, whatever.
Yeah.
They just put those all on the list. Like, we want all these controlled substances from this list in this drug database. That's what they did. And some, like I said, Ritalin is one of them. Testosterone is one of them. I have to look through the list. I haven't looked through it in a while, but I just recently was looking through it again when I was writing about this because it's ridiculous. And again, like I said, they have all information, including refills, overlapping refills, and everything on the
But
patient.
not why.
But not why.
Right.
That would be a HIPAA violation
That
if
would
they
be a
said
HIPAA
why.
violation. Why
Yeah,
do you need these medicines?
Your name, your doctor, the prescriber, your prescription, that's not a HIPAA violation, but putting why, which would actually help, if law enforcement really is looking at this, if they look down the list and they said,
Or
okay,
if hackers want to
hot-
sell a list of who has the best drugs, they could hack the list and sell it to somebody, and people could go break into your house and take your medication.
There you go. That too.
So,
I mean, it's just bigger government designed to hurt actual law-abiding citizens and not actually help druggies. And the other thing is, it's getting pushed like this, like I said, to push Obamacare's Medicaid expansion because they're going to use the excuse that, well, Obamacare's Medicaid expansion will help druggies. Really?
no, well,
not at all.
it'll make it worse.
It will make it
Just
worse.
what it'll do. It'll make it worse.
So, but that's what they're trying to push for. And don't make no mistake, our buddy Papa Smurf's kid is in on it
Yeah.
because he doesn't want to have this be. As I think Susan was saying this earlier, he doesn't want to have this be on his deal if he is going to be governor. Yeah.
So wait, when you say he doesn't want it on his deal if he's going to be governor, you mean he would rather any kind of Medicaid expansion or renewal happened before
Yep.
the election, so it wasn't an issue for him.
He wants a
Stake.
clean
Absolutely.
stable.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. But see, the thing is, guys.
Make sure you
and
get
the
those
thing
horses
is-
tied up before I get there.
But listen, the thing is, no one, not Maggie, not any Republicans who voted for it, no one, not one single person has said how we're going to pay for the hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to start becoming due to help pay for the people that already had insurance, but we took them off it to make them government dependent.
Yeah.
No one has said how we're going to pay for it. Not one of them.
And the government is now, the feds are now starting to think of lowering that 90%. Because remember, it was only for 3 years, folks. And I'm just kind of surprised that the money's lasted this long. Because look at, again, I go back to special ed. The feds were supposed to pay lots of money for that, and they haven't even come close to a third of
They raised the
that money.
debt ceiling. Come on.
Well,
Yeah, but you know what? There's already hospitals that are considering opting out of Obamacare's Medicaid expansion. Why?
Yep.
Because they aren't getting paid what they were told they were going to get paid
Yep.
if they opted into this program.
It's all
Dartmouth Hitchcock is one of them.
It's all the path to single payer.
And of course, the insurance companies are raising their rates. Why? Because the federal government, with a little bit of help from the Republican Congress, has finally said, no, we're not going to pay you those bailouts that Obama promised if you don't get enough stupid takers.
Well, not only that, but the risk pools tended to be to the older, more sicker people. And, my sons went naked as far as health insurance were concerned when they first came out of the military. They're young. They're relatively healthy. Except for a catastrophic illness. They never got sick, didn't have to go to the hospital or anything. They said, why should I pay for something that I'm not going to use? That is a completely and eminently rational decision.
Yep.
And you're seeing people now, what's the biggest specialty in medical practice now? Concierge doctor services. People would rather pay the doctors direct a few $100s a month instead of something else.
Yeah,
And
those
I think it's a great way to do it.
Those
There
places are popping up like mushrooms
Yeah,
in the
there was-
fall.
Well, the
They're
urgent
just
care stuff
everywhere,
and the
everywhere.
urgent care as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the urgent care means I can go and get seen for something basic without having to go to an ER, without having to have insurance and pay as I go.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the market will circumvent this if it's allowed to. And if you currently took your hands off and the regulations off, it'd shake out pretty damn quickly. But I bet these concierge doctors and urgent care centers would be a big part of the final solution.
There's a chart I need to put up. He's the head of the economics department at Harvard, and he put up a chart to show the economic impact on the different socioeconomic quintiles of Obamacare, and it's just absolutely astonishing. You see the lowest two, you see their relative income skyrocketing, and everybody else has gone down. This is nothing but a wealth redistribution process.
Whoa.
And it's not even helping because, as we know, there's a lot of doctors who aren't taking Medicare. A lot of hospitals aren't taking Medicare. So when the left says everybody, look at the percentage of people who are now insured. Well, still, in absolute numbers, it's no better than it was before. And there's even if you're on Medicare.
Look how many
Medicaid,
bicycles we sold to fish.
Yeah. You're still not getting seen. The whole
It's
idea
worse
was...
than that.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to say it's worse than that because this is what happens. The middle class usually always had health insurance, right? We were willing to pay, whatever amount of money it was, and it's increased over and over and over and over and freaking over, right?
And
Actually,
over.
I used to live in Massachusetts, and before Obamacare, my health insurance only, the premiums only went up like 2% each year, so my company took the hit. They're like, we're not going to raise your rates this year because it only went up 2%. We can handle that. Obamacare went into effect. All of a sudden, we had deductibles and we had to pay a lot more money. So we've all been seeing this for a long time, right? So the middle class always said, I'm going to buy insurance because it's responsible. I want to make sure I have it in case I need it. Most of us rarely ever need it. I certainly never used as much except for maybe a couple years of what I paid into it, right? Obamacare comes along and says, we want to help the middle class, and we're gonna
Is that
make
your
sure
Hillary
everybody
impression?
stays-"
Yeah, right. No, you're right. And like Obamacare, like UPS had to cut spouses out of their plans because it's so expensive for the unions and UPS, and the school districts are going there now too. We're already hearing from teachers unions locally that future plans may have to cut spouses out of the plan because they can't
that
afford
sure
it.
is ugly, isn't it?
Isn't
Well,
it?
it's not just that. It's that. So the middle class, we're all paying. A lot of us lost our health insurance. We had to get outrageously expensive health insurance. But the deductibles went up and the out-of-pocket costs went up. So not only are we paying more for premiums, but we're paying more for out-of-pocket costs. What does that do? That makes people not get health care.
Well, people,
That
you
makes
have to
people
get health
not
care.
go.
They fine you, but think about this. If you cut your spouse off, like I'll give you as an example, I don't have to pay for insurance from my employer because my wife has insurance through the school district. She pays $100-something a pay period for insurance. If that price isn't going to go down if it's just her, she's still going to be paying $100-something out of her paycheck. Okay, she might get a raise because she's in a school district. I haven't had a raise in 8 years. Because of the economy.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have a freaking job. Okay?
Yeah.
I'll be one of the last people out the door if my company burns to the ground fiscally or economically or whatever. If I have to take up health insurance from my employer, it's going to be $100 every pay period out of my check. So not only are we no longer not covered, we are now losing $200 every pay period, which is almost $500 a month, that we will no longer have because the Democrats made health insurance better.
Yeah. And
Well, no, but when I say people don't get health care, I'm saying they don't go to their doctors and see their doctors because they can't afford it.
No, that's
I'm not
true.
saying they
That's
don't get
true.
the insurance. They get the insurance, but they're not actually getting health care. So we all were healthier before because we would go to the doctor because it didn't cost $70 for a specialist visit, which is what I pay now. And we got our taken care of and preventative and all that. But now we can't do as much because it's so expensive. It's unaffordable.
Well,
Maybe
even
we should
those-
just all live in the basement and take heroin.
Even with those on Obamacare, where this is the sign-up period, so we're seeing all kinds of commercials. Hey, it's affordable. They never say it's affordable because the rest of us are now unaffordable. But even those people are looking at, on a silver plan, they're looking at a deductible of $6,000, $8,000, and for some families, $12,000. They've got to spend $12,000 in a year before that Obamacare silver plan kicks in, and it's even worse on the bronze
I'd rather
plan.
not pay the insurance because I'm going to have to pay that much money out anyway
Be a really-
before I get anything back.
Really good
Yeah,
time to play this.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Okay.
Yeah, I work
Or
for
maybe this was better.
That's way better. That's more appropriate.
Yeah, so I work for a decent little left coast company, and they had to go through hoops and a new broker in order to keep insurance for their staff when when Obamacare kicked in for companies because they got more than 50 people. And every year I live in fear and trembling that it's going to be either too expensive or have too high deductibles for it to be any use at all to me.
Yeah.
And you need it.
The
And I
first
need
year of
Marmar has to
Obamacare,
have.
Mama's expensive.
Yes.
the first year of Obamacare, I was paying $1,000 a month for insurance. The next year, my insurance went up. It was going to go up to $1,200 a month. That's more than a lot of people pay for their mortgages across the country.
So you're not seeing
So-
that extra $2,500 a year in savings?
Don't get me started. I'll break rule number one.
We were already into this. Started. We've been talking about it for 40 minutes.
Yeah, but I'll break rule number one when we talk about
Well,
that.
okay, hang on a second. There you go. Now we're all set. Oh, I got to put her back in here. Oh, there you go.
Yes. Technology ain't it
Unfortunately,
wonderful at
I don't
times?
have a cough button or a delay, so I can't beep you if you say something inappropriate. But anyway,
I usually can self-beat myself.
yeah,
Usually.
usually. It only takes once. It only takes once.
Well, that's why we're on the internet, not on the air. At least the FCC can't regulate
Well, yeah,
us.
and then
Not
we're
yet.
not on the
Yet.
air at all now, so except because the Spreaker stream was down, so we're okay. If you were to swear, we'd be good.
No, we're live on
It's like you're
Ustream.
encouraging me.
We might blush, but no, we're not going to
Yeah,
blush.
right.
All right, so we are heading into the final stretch of the second hour. I think we beat this. Well, we could beat this horse to death for weeks and days and months and years, but we want to see if we can move on to any other topics. Open it up. Somebody start.
Can I switch the topic?
Oh, sure. You're on the phone. Go ahead.
So, by the way, 10,000 Syrians were delivered to New Orleans today.
We talked
Yeah,
about
already
that.
talked
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
Oh, did you talk about that already?
Yeah,
Okay.
you should listen to talk radio more often. Miss,
I
Miss,
was actually listening, but I was doing something at the same
Oh,
time.
so
yeah, Miss Susan
all right.
beat him to death pretty well.
You got another one?
Okay,
Yeah.
another topic?
Yeah. Yeah. Mar Rick's got a topic.
Yeah.
Okay, I know you talked about Kasich.
This is a little more local. Yeah, the man with a perpetual frown. We talked about him early on. In Methuen, Massachusetts, you had a gentleman back in July. He jumped through Massachusetts' hoops to be licensed to carry a pistol. So he stopped at home. He stopped at the Irish Cottage in Methuen to have a cold one before he went home. And there happened to be two cops in there, Methuen police officers, a lieutenant and a sergeant.
On duty?
It doesn't say. What would one be doing at the Irish Cottage? At the end of the day. So, needless to say, they called the station. Hey, send a patrol officer. There's a guy here with a gun. So they send a patrol officer. Now, bear in mind, there's no law in Massachusetts that says you cannot go into a bar with a firearm if you have a licensed firearm. And you've said, Mother, may I, and they've granted you your wish and let you have a license to carry in the Bay State. How does this happen, So, guy goes into the bar, or the patrol officer goes in, questions the individual, determines he's broken no laws. So the lieutenant and the sergeant decide, well, we're going to take his gun anyway. And they confiscate his gun. They make him pick it up at the police station or what have you. So it's decided that this was misconduct by their chief, and they were suspended. The sergeant for 3 days, the lieutenant for 5 days, suspended without pay. And the reason is because they acted outside color of law. The guy broke no laws. They had no probable cause. No offense was committed. They had no reasonable basis to confiscate the firearm. Therefore, it is a procedural violation, and you guys are suspended. So what do? They appeal their suspension. Hence, which brings me to my blog that I wrote last week. And just in a nutshell, they hired defense attorneys, and under cross-examination, they hired an independent chief from retired police chief from Tewksbury to independently investigate, and he found that the officers acted inappropriately, that they had no basis to confiscate the firearm. They had there was no violation, no crime committed, so they did it without cause. And they had these attorneys that were cross-examining this independent investigator. Don't you think it's stupid to drink alcohol while carrying a firearm? In other words, the bottom line is these cops had their own. This is an example, and what I point out in the Grok piece from this past week is that a prime example of ideology, personal ideology, becoming force of law when we pin a badge on people. So, I mean, that was the crux of what I wrote. So.
I think it's a stupid idea, so I can make law that says I'm going to punish you for having for it being a stupid idea.
I'm just curious, were the cops that were in the bar drinking, were they armed?
They wouldn't. That nowhere did I find anything that alluded to that.
I'm going to bet they were. I'm going to get they were, because as a person who carries almost everywhere he can and a few places he's not supposed to,
and a few places that
no, it's not illegal. It's just frowned upon.
A few places where there's no law says you can't, but
they don't. But the
wusses running the place would freak out if they found out.
Correct. Which is why I wear sweatshirts and baggy shirts and long coats and things like that. It would occur to me that once you start carrying, you don't stop.
Right.
Carrying.
Yeah.
You always carry.
Yeah. I mean,
so I would bet that these officers, off-duty officers, presumably, were carrying in a place where they were drinking alcohol.
Oh, sure, but they're police.
Oh, that's true. They have a badge.
They have a badge,
authority.
and it's okay for them.
This is why I frequently denigrate these supermen who think that they can drive cars with microphones in their hand, but we can't use cell phones.
Right.
That they can leap tall buildings with a single bound, but don't you dare try it, buddy.
Well, this comes to the bigger point, and I think you're absolutely spot on. You know, we've got Obama saying, well, the federal government will not defend a legally passed law, DOMA. Yeah. They declared it unconstitutional ahead of the time it went to the Supreme Court, so they stopped. Now, here in New Hampshire, we have the same thing. It's just unbelievable how D.C. and Congress seem to ping-pong this stuff between them, because the state AG just said that they weren't going to defend a law because he felt it was unconstitutional. Now, I've drawn a blank as to what it was. I went on a micro rant in the House when I heard this, because it's not the executive branch's purview to unilaterally declare a law unconstitutional. If you want it unconstitutional, put a case in front of the Supreme Court and let them do it, either at New Hampshire or the U.S. level. But to just say, we're not going to do anything, it comes to what we're now seeing big time. The breakdown of the rule of law, the respect for the rule of law, and what was said earlier, and I think, Scott, you were the one who said it, which is, it's wrong if I say that it's wrong. Now we're really graduating, I believe, into that venue of the strongman rule.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are doing that in government, you have the full force and majesty of the government to enforce your arbitrary law. Just look at Obama. Look at how many times his laws have been bounced out of the Supreme Court and his executive orders.
9 times.
9 times.
9 times.
10. Just happened again this week.
Not enough.
Not enough. Good answer, Don.
Well, the AGs.
But what was that law that just happened? I think it was Foster who said it.
Well, yeah, Foster is the AG, but the only thing I can think of that the AG is doing that's wrong is suing Croydon. For following the law. And I have a question here. The town of Croydon has used the law as written to send 4 students to a different school than the one that the state says they're supposed to send them to. It's not a public school, and they're using taxpayer money to pay the tuition, and the parents cover the difference if there is one. This happens with Pinkerton Academy. This happens in hundreds of schools all over the state. I want to know when Pinkerton and all these other schools are going to come out and defend Croydon, because if the AG gets his way, and this goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says Croydon isn't following the law, then technically none of those other schools are either.
That's right.
You can't use public money to pay private tuition, which happens across state lines. It happens almost every town in the state. And so what Maggie Hassan's Attorney General, former Democrat state senator, is going to do is try to get the Supreme Court or a judge in the state, right now they're in Superior Court, to say, no, Croydon can't do that. There's wide-ranging consequences to that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And where are all these schools on this issue?
They're like all the conservative students on some of these campuses, like Mizzou and Yale and Ithaca and everywhere else, where they have come out and said, because of political correctness, we aren't saying anything because we are scared. And all they have to do is point at the academicians that have been kicked out and the faculty have been kicked out.
It's
terror. I think it is. This is the IRS rule.
It's
all over the
go full circle what we talked about earlier.
We make examples of a few to silence the rest.
Right.
And that's exactly what they're doing. There was a Mizzou professor who said, I'm going to have the exams on the day that supposedly the KKK was going to do something. He said, I'm going to have the exam today. That's how you fight against bullies. You don't back down from them. You fight against them. And the media, it was the media, not the students really. It was the media, that left-wing media that came out against him and said he was racist. He was a white professor trying to make black students come to class. It was ridiculous. And he said,
You make him take tests on white paper.
Yeah, he's like, I'm resigning. Obviously, if this isn't work, and he's a beloved professor by all the students.
Yep. And he's going to be working somewhere else.
They didn't accept
his
resignation.
They didn't. Oh, okay.
Did you guys see what I posted earlier? These Mizzou students are pissed off that Paris happened.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
They're mad because it stole all their thunder.
And that really is the point of this whole thing.
Yep.
It's publicity-seeking hounds to enforce their own self-worth and
But it's got to be the right
again.
publicity, because if you don't, they're going to bring in the muscle.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they already got their trophy by getting the top two at Mizzou to resign.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. But the problem is once you start taking heads, you just can't stop.
You know
the
something?
Football coach go too?
Yeah.
Didn't the football coach quit?
He defended his players. You know,
'cause that's the
I'm
Clemson
sorry.
game
I
today.
went to BU, and at the top guy, we called him the one-arm bandit, Silber.
Yeah, I remember.
And he was about as hard-nosed. I wouldn't use the other part of the
John Bowtie Silber.
Yes, I'm not going to use the other part of the anatomy. I'll break rule number 1.
Yeah.
But a hard-nosed guy. And when they would, and I went to school there in the mid-'70s. So the hippie generation was just starting to wind down. But there was still a lot of activity. And he basically told the police, if they don't get out of their little tent city on our property, you ask them 3 questions, and if they say no to any of them, yank them. And when those people acted up, he expelled them. And I'm sorry, but when you've got a bunch of bratty little college kids, and now that I'm not one, I can look back and say, yeah, that's what a lot of them were, too full of themselves to know any better, skulls full of mush. And BU was a very liberal school.
Still is.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sorry, but when you act up, if these college bratty kids want the colleges to act in loco parentis for a healing space, then the academicians and the people in charge and the administration ought to say, fine, I am going to act like your parents. Congratulations. Careful for what you wished for. We're now going to deliver it.
Too bad they didn't do that at Keene State last year with the Pumpkin Festival. And they didn't expel anybody. They didn't arrest anybody. But they're not going to have the Pumpkin Festival in Keene anymore.
They got arrested, and I think a number of them got...
A couple of
They
people.
were not... I don't
They
think
weren't
any
prosecuted?
charges...
Well, they weren't, but I thought a couple of them did get expelled.
There was arrest, but I think they found that a lot of the students weren't even from Keene.
Right.
Well,
but they
know.
punished the whole entire area
Yeah.
because they wouldn't have the Pumpkin Festival. We just simply can't afford the extra security. Thinking
Too much of a cost issue.
it's too much of a cost issue.
It's in Laconia
yes.
now, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's one day.
So I found my entry. It was
Okay.
on, what day was it on? The date's not up because I'm on an iPhone. But here's what
A little late for a phone call.
Gary Nolan, the defense attorney, had to say. He called the superior officer's
Hello?
suspension.
I'm sorry?
Hello.
Yes, it is.
This is Radical moderate.
Hey. You can stop talking through that because he's on the air.
Okay, I'm done.
Oh, well. You called us with like 3 minutes left. What's up, Red Mod?
Yeah, and I did that. I didn't want to interrupt. You guys were having a great go around. I just wanted to just take a minute and say thank you to everybody there. Your articles are fantastic. You guys do a great job. All of you. I enjoy.
It's our fan.
Well, yeah, it's very. I guess it's to me it's very heartening to have another voice. I guess the only voice in New Hampshire that is kind of spearheading what little opposition there is to kind of the destruction of what we used to know here. But I mean, you guys keep up the good fight, and I'll support you as much as I can. I urge everybody to support Granite Rock. I'd like to see one of these days you guys be on the air, radio-wise. I mean, I think you need to reach a lot more people.
But then we got to follow rules.
Roger.
I understand that. Believe me, it's not. It's not something that is easy. But I think the entire state really should have one voice that they can at least get a dissenting opinion on what's going on instead of everything being just jammed down their throats. So, but like I said, I just want to let you guys know everybody does a great job there, and keep up the good work. It's like I said, kudos to you guys. You guys are doing something while many people are just have given up, and but thank you once again.
Oh, we appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Hey,
Thank you.
Rad, thank you very much because a lot of times we don't hear from folks like you. We are getting more commenters, but I will tell you that we do get them when we go to the different events, and it is very heartening because it makes worthwhile all of the hours that we spend doing this stuff to be able to get that little bit of an acknowledgement. We don't get paid.
It's the currency of our realm.
Yeah, the thank you, much appreciated.
Yeah, that's very true.
Take care.
Alrighty, thank you, sir.
Thank you for
Good
the
luck
call.
and good health to everybody there.
You too.
Thanks, Red.
Thanks.
And to you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody, for coming in. This is Grok Talk. We will be back next week.